Good morning and welcome. I'd like to open our time together this morning with a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land we are standing on is the traditional territories of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit and by the Williams Treaties with multiple Mississauga and Chippewa bands. We have an immense responsibility to care for this land, to be a steward for the time we are here in respect for those who have come before us and for those who will come after, and for all creatures, whether they walk, swim, crawl, or fly. I am a newcomer to this land, and I understand the responsibility that I have to make a connection with the earth. I also understand my responsibility and commitment to actively engage in and support truth and reconciliation with all Indigenous peoples. As a settler to this land, I would like to thank ancestors for taking care of this land for generations before. And as we proceed with this commemoration and into the future, please remember that truth and reconciliation is essential for healing, and that for us non-Indigenous folks, researching, learning, and understanding truth is a prerequisite for reconciliation. Elder Wabigan, good morning.
Good morning.
I would like to offer you this tobacco and ask if you would share an opening of our time together from your Anishinaabe culture.
Big witch. Thank you. So, bonjour in the way magana dog. I mean, Wabigoon Indigenous and Dunjaba, Obishiko Kang, Laksua First Nation, Mang Dora. Hello and welcome all my relatives. My name is Wabigoon, flower blooming in spring. I come from Laksua First Nation, the land abundant with white pine, and I sit with the Loon Clan. I want to thank Street Art for this beautiful invitation to come and share this day and share this moment this morning with all our relations, with the winged ones, the swimmers, the crawlers, the root nation, the plant nation, the tree nation, the sky nation, the sun, the moon, the breath, the fire, all beautiful things that we share this land with, and we must acknowledge this on this beautiful day. On this day, we want to remember Phyllis Webstad's story. And I think of my mother, a residential school survivor who did come home. She was a fortunate one to come home, but we lost my mother that day that she went to residential school. She never came back the same. I remember her today. And when I was making tobacco ties this morning, and as we shift into the western direction on the medicine wheel, I was thinking about that while making this tie. So the color is black. And for balance, on the eastern side, I had made it with yellow ribbon. And the ribbon reminded me of the eagle span. Remember, our eyebrows can remind us about the eagle span. The trunk of the tree is your nose. And it's with these teachings that I walk with each and every day that I'm mindful of all these stories that must be heard. We've been telling these stories for years and years and years and years. And in order to get through all the emotion and get to the truth, then comes reconciliation. So I say McWitch to Street Art, the whole team, and I say McWitch, and I thank Mother Earth, and I Nanambuju. McWitch, and McWitch.
The Government of Canada recently designated this day, September 30th, as the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation to honor the lost children and survivors of residential schools, their families and communities, and all First Nation, Inuit, and Métis people, and to ensure the ongoing public commemoration of their history and the legacy of residential schools. This day is meant to provide time and space to reflect on the atrocities this nation committed against the original peoples of this land. It's not a day for celebration. It's a day for reflection and for atonement. It's essential that we use this day to learn and reflect on the true Indigenous history of this land, including the continual and still ongoing legacy of colonial trauma and the experiences of Indigenous lives lost through the deliberate and intentional policies of harm. For non-Indigenous people, it's important we learn to lean into harsh truths and that we may not have heard or have learned before. It's a reminder of the atrocities and colonial violence that not only began in the early days of Canada, but continue with public sector systems, legislation, and social policies that fail to evolve in the face of these truths. These are the reasons that the 94 calls to action are presented, to call out the systemic issues and take action to change them as a path forward for Canada. It's also important that we not lose sight of the story of Phyllis Webstad and the fact that this is also Orange Shirt Day. We're all wearing our orange shirts today. A day that has been designated since 2013, designed to educate people and promote awareness in Canada about the residential school system and the impact that it has had on the Indigenous communities for over a century that still continues today. It is held annually on September 30th in Canadian communities. People are encouraged to wear an orange shirt, and the inspiration for Orange Shirt Day came from the residential school survivor Phyllis Jack Webstad, who shared her story at a St. Joseph Mission Residential School commemoration project and reunion event held in Williams Lake, British Columbia in the spring of 2013. Phyllis recounted her first day of residential schooling at 6 years old when she was stripped naked and her brand new orange shirt that was bought to her as a gift from her grandmother for the very first day of school was taken away from her and never returned. The story symbolizes how the residential school system endeavored to take away the Indigenous identity of its students. And through survivor testimonies and the resilience of Indigenous people, we have the opportunity to learn the truth in order to take action for justice for Indigenous people. Thank you. To continue the journey of truth-telling, I'm here with artist Q Rock. Q is a Nipissing First Nation Anishinaabeg artist currently based in Toronto. He is an internationally known rapper, a hip-hop artist, a breakdancing artist, and more recently, a mural and graffiti artist. Q began his life learning his cultural teachings, approaches, and ceremonies through visual healing art forms like painting, dancing, leatherwork, and storytelling that we were all taught through traditional Ojibwe and Odawa ways. Q's art draws on the teachings of his culture to create vibrant, meaningful artworks that are forms of visual healing in and of themselves. And he's here today to tell us about the recently created incredible pieces that he's done on the Lansdowne Underpass.
Ani Anishinaabe, Manitunimin, Adishnakaz. I'm from Nipissing First Nations. I'm representative of the Mayangan Dodom. And when I was asked to be part of this project, I really wanted to honor my mother and my father, who are both traditional healers. And my mother, she was part of the American Indian movement when she was young, and part of a lot of human rights activist movements. She's my hero. She taught me my culture, and I wanted to honor her on her 73rd birthday this year. And it was the same day that we ended up painting the mural. I painted the mural with my son and my daughter to honor their Nokomis, their grandmother. And I wanted to also incorporate a lot about my culture. And this is a photo, actually, the portrait of my mother was a photo I have of her when she was 23 years old. My mother was a residential school survivor. She tells me terrible things that happened to her. And I just wanted to honor her and show her how proud I am of her, of being a survivor. And just listening to her stories, you know, I wanted her to know that I stand beside her and support her in life. And I also wanted to have a place where natives and non-native people could come and have a visual healing experience. And I also did the portrait of my father, who has passed away. My father's name was Bobby Woods, and he was also a healer. He was teaching a lot of the inmates in prisons and penitentiaries about our culture, doing sweat lodges, sacred fires, and introducing our culture essentially to a lot of the inmates who never had a chance to learn their culture before they had met my father. I'm really proud of my mom and my dad for all the work that they've done, and I just want to honor what they were able to do, and continue to show the resilience of our nation, that we're still here, that we're still striving, and and to honor the land, to honor those teachings and all the nations. There's a lot of land acknowledgements that happen in Toronto I've listened to, and they're all focused on the human nation. But the original peace treaty that I was taught was the original 6 nations of humanity, before humanity, and that was the plant nation, the insect nation, the bird nation, the fish nation, and the animal nation. All 5 nations had to agree to let the human nation live here on Mother Earth, on Turtle Island. And in my artwork, I always try to share those stories and those teachings. It's an honor for me to be here because I'm an ambassador for my nation, for Nipissing, and I take it very seriously. I take my roles and responsibilities very serious, and I just want to send all my love out to all my people out there, everyone from the Red Nation, and everyone from all the nations of humanity. I'm Anishinaabe. I'm going to be here for as long as I can be, sharing my culture, and I'm really grateful for Street Art Toronto to give me a platform to be able to share my culture. Chemigwech.
Thanks to Q and Elder Wabigoon for sharing your knowledge and your experiences to start off this day of reflection and learning. It's also an exciting day. There's going to be another announcement that I'm not going to spill, but it's coming later today about a landmark placemaking initiative that both Elder Wabigoon and Q have been invited to partner on. And you can check that out on Street Art Toronto social media channels later this afternoon. I just want to wrap us up by sharing and the knowledge that truth must come before reconciliation. So I really encourage everyone listening to use this day intentionally as a springboard and an ongoing learning journey to understand and truly reflect on the truth of the land and the indigenous history of the land and the original peoples in order to take action for justice for indigenous people every day on the go forward. We have an immense responsibility to do that. I also want to acknowledge that for centuries before first contact, Indigenous peoples had highly developed governance systems and protocols based on honor, trust, and respect. Respect for elders, women, children, two-spirited people, youth, and men. Respect for the land, for the water and the sky, and all living things, animals, trees, plants, insects that inhabit the world, and stewardship of resources for the benefits of all, not for personal wealth and power. And respect for other people and nations. We need to acknowledge that we have only recently begun to appreciate the wisdom of Indigenous beliefs, values, and teachings, particularly in regard to the interconnectedness of all things and the imperative of living in harmony. We're going to close out now with a screen showing a number of URLs for further learning resources and for links and to join in the conversation on Street Art Toronto's Twitter account. I really encourage you to have a reflective day, and I want to thank you all for joining us, and thanks to Q and Elder Wabigoon. Miigwech.
Chemigwech.